The first road trip is in the books, and the first place Braves come home for their first games at Truist Park this weekend against the National League champion Arizona Diamondbacks. So some early season excitement in the air as the home opener happens on Friday night. Grant McCauley and Chris Willis with you as always here on Battery Power TV. Great show on tap. Before we get started, though, I have to remind you, go ahead, leave a like on this video, hit that subscribe button, and enable alerts. That way you will get notified every time we drop a new episode here on the channel. If you're not a subscriber yet, please help us out doing that and make sure you're telling a friend about the show so we can keep this thing growing. Chris, meanwhile, the Braves took a series from the Phillies and they tried to do the same against the White Sox, but the weather had other ideas. Overall, I think we saw a lot to like on Atlanta's first two series of the year.
Yeah, I mean the offense was impressive. The pitching, Reynaldo Lopez was impressive. A lot
Yeah.
of good things I thought came out of that. Those the first two series. Obviously, you would have liked to have won the one in Chicago, but the weather had other ideas. So it should be an incredible atmosphere at Truist Park on Friday.
Yeah, very excited to get down to the ballpark for the first time in 2024. Let's talk a little bit about the first games of 2024. They happened up in Philadelphia, and I hate to just keep bringing up the past, but we've seen the Braves open up a season at Citizens Bank Park a time or two and limp out of their win list. This, a much different outcome. Two big wins, a lot of offense, a chance for a sweep that got away late in that third game. But I think that the Braves lineup, it got everybody's attention. This is a talented order with no shortage of firepower. Good to see that show up immediately in a place that has been challenging to win, to say the very least.
Without a doubt. I mean, you looked at the first 5 innings of the opening day, and you thought, man, what is it about the Citizens Bank Park where the Braves just can't manage any offense? And then all of a sudden, a big inning later, and they're cruising to a win. Offense just picked up where it left off. Obviously, the weather, in Chicago kind of cooled it off a little bit, but still just eye-popping numbers from the lineup over the this first little road trip.
Yeah, absolutely. And against the Philadelphia Phillies, they piled up 25 runs worth of offense. That first game in Chicago went pretty well. 9 more runs for the Braves before that game was called after just 8 innings. I mean, I don't know that the ninth inning would have changed a whole lot, a chance for a few more runs, but then the next night, even worse as far as the conditions were concerned, that the Braves only got a couple of runs, courtesy of Marcell Ozuna. We'll talk a little bit more about that Chicago series here in a moment, but overall on this road trip, the offense was center stage. Pitching, though, found ways to make things happen as well, some good things, even when the bullpen was asked to cover a lot of the burden and shoulder a lot of the burden in game two with Max Fried having to leave in the first inning. We'll get to that in a moment, but we will talk about the rotation as a whole first. Spencer Strider looked good on opening day, 5 innings, 2-run ball, 8 strikeouts. Chris Sale pitched into the 6th inning in his debut, allowing 2 runs. Charlie Morton and Reynaldo Lopez both looked great in Chicago, tossing solid games there. Pretty good turn through the starting 5. Could have been better if Max Fried had gotten one particular called strike.
Yeah, without a doubt. I mean, and who would have thought that Max Fried would be the guy that had the short start out of this group of
Right.
rotation. But I mean, I think you have to. I think the offense probably overshadowed it a bit in the in the first 3 games against Philadelphia. But the pitching was great all the way through. Spencer Strider, those first 4 innings was pretty much untouchable. Ran into a little bit of trouble in the 5th. Chris Sale looked electric, appeared to get a little stronger, as the game went on as well. Charlie Morton, Reynaldo Lopez. I mean, it was difficult. I know the White Sox probably don't have the most formidable lineup, but the conditions were rough, and I thought he competed well in his first start in a very long time.
Yeah, he did. I mean, this is a guy who absolutely, I think, earned the opportunity. And we may not have really realized this, even talking to him in spring training. But when he came over and signed that 3-year deal with the Braves, he had starting in mind from the get go. And the Braves obviously open to that, letting him stretch out in spring training and giving him the 5th spot in rotation. First time back out there, ironically enough, in a place where he threw plenty of innings. And the last time he was a regular starter was for the White Sox. But the guy that threw in that second contest of that series up there in Chicago looked like the kind of guy the Braves would be happy to have in rotation. We'll see if he's able to build on that as he joins the rotation for the course of the season. And we'll see how all of that plays out as well, because as we know, those plans can change a time or 3 or 4. The Fried start, I think, was frustrating, though, as we go back into the Philadelphia side of things. When Bruce Dreckman missed that called third strike, right down the middle. I think that robbed Fried of that chance to get out of trouble, get back to the dugout, kind of reset, and come back out and maybe have that chance to at least throw 4 or 5 innings. He wasn't sharp. Fried wasn't. He said as much after the game, but this was kind of an extreme example of how much one call can impact a start or a game. And at least the starter who was unable to get out of the first inning as a result, in large part of that, because Fried wasn't getting hit hard. Yes, he did issue a couple of walks, but it's hard to overlook exactly how bad things turned when he was unable to get that called third strike for the final out of the inning.
Yeah, I mean it was a tough inning anyway, but he was that close to getting out of it pretty much unscathed.
Yeah.
And we've seen him do it plenty of times. I feel like if he could have got back to the dugout, he probably could have settled in, gave the Braves at least 4 or 5 innings. But the bullpen came up huge, and the offense rescued him out. So, I think he's probably a little frustrated about the weather in Chicago because it's pushing him back to Saturday. He's probably itching to get back out there as quickly as he can. But I'm not worried about Max Fried. I feel like he'll flush that start and be right back out there and in the groove.
Yeah, and that's what the good ones do. I mean, they figure out a way to get back out there, make those adjustments, and get back to competing. And Max Fried has given the Braves no shortage of good starts. And I would expect his first start on his home mound is going to feel awfully good as well. That will be happening on Saturday, and we'll talk a little bit more about that later. Braves offense, as Chris mentioned, was up to the task against Aaron Nola, rocking him, taking command of that game. Meanwhile, the last man in for the pitching staff was the first line of defense in Game 2 of the season, Jesse Chavez. 3 innings of 1-run ball. What else can you say about this guy? He just finds a way to get it done in a Braves uniform.
Yeah, I mean, he was a late addition to camp, and then went out there and just showed his value right off the bat. He pressed into a difficult spot. That game could have spiraled, gotten out of hand early. He goes out there and gives them quality innings. JT Realmuto solo home runs, all anything he really gave up. He's just a miracle in a Braves uniform because it just seems like he can struggle elsewhere, but when he puts that Braves cap back on, he turns into a different reliever.
It just changes the whole dynamics, whatever the reason is. And this is, his 6th go around with the Braves. Jesse Chavez paying immediate dividends, helping Atlanta cobble together what turned into basically a bullpen game in the second game of the year. And Atlanta able to pick up that win and secure the series victory against the Phillies as well. Worth noting, as we talked about the return of Jesse Chavez and some of the things that it affected as far as the way the Braves roster was shaping up prior to that, Jackson Stephens seemed like he had a spot locked up in the bullpen. He was outrighted to AAA Gwinnett, elected free agency, did not find another deal, has re-signed with the Braves. He is now down in Gwinnett, and he threw on Wednesday as well. So he'll be ready if and when the Braves need him. And I think we know, Chris, when it comes to pitching, it's usually a question of when rather than if, as you go through the year, needing different guys at different times to serve different roles. And Jackson Stephens has been pretty useful for the Braves a couple of times.
Yeah, without a doubt. It was good to see him come back. I know a lot of people, thought that, he was probably angry about the situation, and he probably was a little upset. I mean, these guys are all competitors and want to contribute and everything, but I still felt like that was more of a procedural thing. You always want to keep your options open, look and see if there was a major league opportunity somewhere. And if there wasn't, then, it made a lot of sense to come back to the Braves who he's familiar with. And he's, like you said, he's just a call away now at Gwinnett.
Well, let's talk about the one big down note from the opening series and the road trip at large. And that, of course, the injury to starting catcher Sean Murphy. I know it's a timeshare between Murphy and d'Arnaud, but you expect Sean to be the guy who's going to catch 105 to 115 times, probably, with d'Arnaud handling the rest of that in the way that this timeshare was going to be broken down. But you also know how valuable it is to have both of these guys on this roster. We found out in 2023, Murphy was placed on the injured list, a 10-day with a left oblique strain, grade 1. That's the least severe, which is good news. But as we've seen year after year, there's no good time for an injury. It can change your plans at any time, as we just talked about with the pitching staff. We'll see, when it comes to obliques, you just kind of have to rest and allow it to get better before you even resume those baseball activities. The good news, though, as I mentioned, is the Braves do have Travis d'Arnaud, and I think that's the kind of luxury 29 other clubs would love to have if they lost their starting catcher.
Without a doubt. I mean, that's the big takeaway from this is, you thank goodness that you've got that kind of depth, that you've got a guy like Travis d'Arnaud that can step into the lineup and and not miss a beat. Again, the oblique thing, like you said, it's something to keep an eye on because sometimes you can get over them real quick. Sometimes they linger, and the Braves are going to play it cautious with Sean Murphy. It's not something that you want him to come back from too quickly and then it pop up again, because if it did, he's probably looking at a lot more time out. But like I said, it's never a good time to have an injury, but at least this is a position where the Braves seem to have a good bit of depth.
Yeah, a position of strength for Atlanta. Sean Murphy and Travis d'Arnaud last year combined for over 30 home runs and 100 runs knocked in. So as you looked up and down the Braves' powerful lineup, the catchers were certainly doing their part. And there were times last year where each of these guys kind of had to step in there and carry the load for a little while when the other ended up on the injured list. D'Arnaud with the concussions in the early part of the season, Sean Murphy dealing with a hamstring thing a little bit later. Hopefully this is just another case where, again, I called him starting catcher Sean Murphy, but I don't think I should, sit here and say that Travis d'Arnaud is a true backup, because I think he's way more than that to this Braves club in a number of different ways, and they're very fortunate to have him right now. Braves also signed free agent Sandy Leon. The longtime veteran catcher is in Gwinnett, as Chadwick Tromp was called up to back up d'Arnaud. That's just kind of a minor move to add some depth down in the system as well. Meanwhile, in Chicago, the Windy City, more than windy this week. It was more like the wintry city. Braves claimed a 9-0 win in the opener, came up a run short in a 3-2 loss in game two, had the finale postponed. That'll be made up in June. Overall, the performance of Morton and Lopez in particular, some slugging from Marcell Ozuna, who had a couple of home runs in that second game as well. Braves were lined up to take another series if Mother Nature hadn't called that game on Wednesday afternoon.
Yeah, without a doubt. I mean, you look at the 3-2 loss, there was a lot of soft contact by the White Sox there. Yep. Give them credit. The conditions were tough. Yeah, I'm sure it was not a fun situation for either team to be in. But I mean, it's just baseball. I mean, I think there was a couple of balls that were about 70-mile-an-hour exit velocities that just happened to find grass. And that's the difference in winning and losing.
Yeah, that sometimes is. Baseball can be a cruel game. It's certainly a game of inches. We've seen that many, many times over the course of the Braves baseball both you and I have watched, not just since we started Battery Power TV, but over the course of franchise history. It's just funny the way sometimes that things work out. And sometimes when I say funny, it's not funny at all. It's just the way that it goes. Coming home to Atlanta to open up at Truist Park, the Braves will be facing the Diamondbacks this weekend. Everyone had their start pushed back a day in the rotation. Spencer Strider will get the ball in the home opener on Friday. Max Fried, then Chris Sale will be following. I don't know if you could draw it up any better against an Arizona team that is hoping to build off what was a very special 2023 season for them, Chris.
Yeah, without a doubt. I mean, the Diamondbacks made it all the way to the World Series. I think this is going to be an exciting series here in Atlanta. Corbin Carroll, Christian Walker swinging the bat really well.
Mm-hmm.
It's Diamondbacks team that's trying to take the next step. I mean, they made it all the way to the World Series last year, but only won 84 games. I think they're looking to make the next step, and we know how good the Braves can be too. And the Braves have their best three pitchers lined up for the series, so that's going to be exciting for the fans to be able to see Spencer Strider, Max Fried, and then, of course, Chris Sale make his first home start.
Yeah, Chris Sale's first start at Truist Park will be coming on Sunday. That'll be just one of the many things to watch, but I'm sure that Braves fans are excited to see Spencer Strider get the ball in that opener. Max Fried following on Saturday, looking to get himself, on the right track for 2024 as well. The series, though, will continue through Thursday, the 11th. A 4-game series with the New York Mets will follow the Arizona set this weekend. It's been a rough start for the rest of the National League East, and the Mets are trying to sort out some major issues. They signed former Braves starter Julio Teheran this week to try to fortify a shaky rotation. Chris, I'm not sure if that's the move that's going to get them going, but good to see Teheran get another big league opportunity after the Orioles opted to let him go in spring training.
Without a doubt, it's good to see Julio still hanging in there. He's been. I think he was with Milwaukee last year. Has bounced around a lot in recent years. Hard to believe he's still just 33 years old, because he was pitching in Atlanta as a 20-year-old, and it seems like he's been pitching forever. But I mean, it's hard. I know he's going to be in a Mets uniform, but it's hard to pull against Julio Teheran.
Yeah, all those opening day starts for Julio Teheran as well. He kind of, I joke, I call him the modern day Rick Mailer, because you just knew who was going to be starting on opening day, and it was Julio Teheran for 5-6 years in a row. as well. So we're not going to end on the Julio Teheran reunion tour news. There's a huge night happening on Monday, April the 8th, because it marks the 50th anniversary of Hank Aaron breaking Babe Ruth's all-time home run record. It was April 8th, 1974, when Aaron hit number 715 and became baseball's home run king. I'm excited to see what the Braves have in store at that ceremony as we honor one of the greatest players in baseball history, Chris.
Yeah, it's going to be a special moment. I'm excited to be there just to see it in person. Hank Aaron meant so much, not just to baseball, just to the country in itself. And it's going to be a special moment. I'm sure that's one of the favorite moments in Major League Baseball history. Just one of the biggest things ever. And seeing that clip is something that you just never get tired of seeing.
Yeah, and when you walk through the Monument Garden area that the Braves have behind home plate at Truist Park, the Hank Aaron statue, which was dedicated right before the stadium opened in 2017, that was a thrill for me because that was a night I got to have a conversation with Hank Aaron. It was just a few minutes, but it was surreal to stand there, at that moment, right in front of that brand new statue commemorating one of the greatest moments in sports history and talk to the man who did it. I'll never forget that. It's one of my favorite moments of anything that I've ever done in the last, 20 or so years of covering Braves baseball and talking baseball. I don't know that there's going to be too many that are going to come unseat that one on my list. And it may be a little thing, but I can't help but wish that Atlanta could break out those 1974 uniforms for a night like this, for a weekend like that. It would be a beautiful sight and a fitting tribute.
Without a doubt, it would be awesome if they would pull those out for that Monday's game. Just going to be a special moment, and we've seen a lot of special moments in the past, for a lot of different things. Andrew Jones number retirement last year, but this is another level as far as it goes. Just Hank Aaron just meant so much to the city of Atlanta, so much to the Braves. It's just going to be a special moment at Truist Park.
Yeah, so much to baseball in general. Henry Aaron, just one of the all-time greats, an icon of baseball. And as great as he was on the field, when you start to talk to people that spend any amount of time around Henry Aaron, you find out that he was an even greater person. And that, I think, is a huge part of an indelible legacy he's put on the Braves franchise and all of baseball as well. Just one of the true all-time greats. That brings us to the end of another episode of BPTV. Make sure you hit that subscribe button right here on the Battery Power YouTube channel. Turn on those notifications. You'll get an alert every time we drop a new episode. As always, we thank you for riding along with us, and we will look forward to catching you next time, Braves Country. Until then, so long, everyone.